Regular meeting for Monday, April the 23rd. Could I please have the roll call?
Councilmember Abdelgawad.
Here.
Councilmember Barber.
Present.
Councilmember Berenson.
Present.
Councilmember Burke.
Present.
Councilmember Serko.
Present.
Councilmember Holman.
Present.
Councilmember Kellogg.
Present.
Councilmember Townsend.
Present.
Mayor Turnbow.
Present. Could you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is presentations and awards, of which there are none tonight. We do not have any personal appearances, so we'll move into staff reports. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Grass to make a report for Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. In addition to my submitted written report, I'd like to give you an update on the Dean Avenue and Foxford Drive extensions. If the weather cooperates, we are on pace to have both of those roads open by early June. And that concludes staff report. I'm available for any questions.
Excellent. Any status on 155th Street Bridge?
Well, you will be having first reading of the contract this evening. We'll be presenting that. Probably, you know, that is so weather dependent. End of August, first part of September, we're anticipating completion for that.
Okay. Depends on how much time we take approving things tonight, right? Okay. And thank you, Mike. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Mr. Grass. I would ask Mr. Mustine to make a report for Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, sir. Mayor, members of the council. I've submitted a written report and just want to, first of all, thank Ray-Pec School Districts and Bridal Ridge for allowing me to come visit Ms. Gonzalez' fourth grade class. Had a great time, answered a lot of questions. Their letters of persuasion were very persuasive, and I was more than happy to be there, so hope to be able to go back and visit again. Our spring sports are in full swing right now. We got everything happening: baseball, volleyball, soccer. It's all hitting right now. Our Friday Food Fest was last Tuesday. Go figure. And we had really nice weather. It was had a great turnout. Had 6 trucks, a band. It's always a good time, and TB Hanna is shaping up to be just a perfect little park for that. So we're pleased to do that. And then this weekend we have our Touch a Truck event. That'll be at Recreation Park. It is from 9 to 1 o'clock. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer anything.
Any question on the parks? Mr. Holman.
Do you have an update on the status of the rack, Mr. Mustine?
Yes, the rack has come along nicely. On the interior, they're working on walls. We're doing a lot of the electrical work, doors, locks, things like that. So we're moving along very nicely right now.
And we're anticipating opening late July, is that
Yes,
correct?
Sir.
Okay,
yes, sir.
thank you.
Excellent. Anyone else? Thank you, Nate.
Thank you.
Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Mr. Mustine. I would ask Mr. Icky to make a report for the Communications Department.
Thank you, sir. Really only one item of great importance is we need to set a date in May for council photos. We'll be doing a portrait shot as well as a group shot for the whole new council, or the full council. We're looking at May 7th or May 21st before either of the work sessions. In the past, I know being outside and squinting into the sun has not really produced the best photos, and so our goal is to have Ms. McGee, who's a great photographer, do the photos here in front of the dais, as well as photos for individuals in the executive conference room. And so I think that will provide kind of the best opportunity. If there is a preference on either of those days, please let me know as soon as possible, and I will make sure we get an email out. Probably still do the same 15 minutes before the meeting and have everything finished then.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Anybody have any questions for Michael? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Fearborn, anything else?
Thank you, Mr. Icky. Just want to remind the council that next Monday night is 5th Monday, so we'll be giving you the night off.
All right. Well, thank you. Is that all?
That concludes staff
Okay,
reports.
thank you, sir. And we'll move on to the next part of our agenda is the committee reports. There are none. But the next part is rather lengthy, is our consent agenda. We have items A through G tonight, several appointments, minutes, and so forth. So I would entertain a motion at this time to dispose of all or part of the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve items A through G of the consent agenda. For me to read through all of them.
Okay, thank you.
I think Kevin already seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? So the items on the consent agenda are April 9th regular meeting minutes, April 9th special meeting, the Public Works Interior Painting Project, acceptance and final payment, appointment of Shannon Weichel to the Board of Adjustment, appointment of Paul Bartolone as an alternate member to the Board of Adjustment, appointment of Christopher Love to the Arts Commission, and acceptance of the public improvements, Heritage Hills 5th and 6th plats, lots 136 through 163. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Can I please have the second reading? Oh, excuse me. This is a resolution. We're moving on to unfinished business now. And, well, it's not a resolution. It's actually delinquent occupational licenses. I would ask for an update from staff.
I would ask Ms. Werner to please give the council an update.
Thank you. Good evening. On April the 9th at the last City Council meeting, Council considered action on delinquent occupational licenses. At Council's direction at that meeting, Freedom Stop, Polymer Systems, and the Pit Grill and Bar were placed on this agenda to allow the owners to address the Council if their licenses remain delinquent. I would report that last Friday, April the 13th, the Pit Grill and Bar met compliance with their occupational licenses, so they will not be appearing at this meeting. I would be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, that concludes staff report.
Okay, thank you, Jeannie. Any questions? Hearing none, I would open it up to either Freedom Stop or Polymer Systems at this time to present themselves before the council. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Lori O'Malley with Freedom Stop, 503 East Walnut Street, Raymore, Missouri, 64083. We have made significant progress. After 2 weeks of endless phone calls to the Missouri Department of Revenue, they suggested that instead of waiting for their special handling for our returns that were filed in error and paid, well paid in the past, they suggested that we make a duplicate payment and wait for a credit back on our sales tax just in time, which I had no problem with. They suggested that on Friday morning, we then attempted to make a sales tax payment, a duplicate sales tax payment, to find out that our debit card limits, the amount of the sales tax returns exceeded our debit card limits. So after transferring money back and forth between banks and trying to do some fancy things here, the duplicate payments have been made. Their suggestion in doing that would have taken it off of somebody's desk and placed it on the automated system. Typically, when we make a sales tax payment, we do it by electronic check, and it takes 72 hours to process, and then it goes on somebody's desk, and then they have to produce a no sales tax due letter, and then they have to fax or email it to us. In order to avoid that waiting period, when they suggest on Friday that we make a duplicate payment, it would be automated through the system. But since typically we don't make credit card payments in order to pay our sales tax, I did know that that's what it would do in order to trip the system and do it on the automated system. Long story short, our duplicate sales tax payment has been made. They just made that sales tax payment within the last hour because it took some fancy footwork in order to figure out how to get past that credit limit. So between Country Club Bank and Community Bank of Raymore, between our business accounts and our personal accounts, it exceeded those limits. So that has now been made. And it has to update at midnight in order for the processing. So there shouldn't be an issue with having a no tax due letter automated off the system after midnight. Had they come up with this the solution sooner in order to get it off somebody's desk, I would have had this sooner. I do want to clear the notion that we ever waited to the last minute on this issue. I've been working on this for months, and as so many people have brought forward, you can't walk into a Missouri Department of Revenue sales tax office. You can't call and speak with somebody in particular. You have to call on a daily basis, which I do. You have to call on a daily basis, and you have to reiterate your entire story to somebody brand new every day. You don't have a specific person that you can call on an extension or anything of that sort. So I have literally been working on this for months. So I don't want to leave anybody with the impression that this has been on the back table and we're just waiting until the city council meeting and what are we going to do? We'll just ask for an extension. That's nowhere near the situation that we've been encountering. Our sales tax payments were made. They were made appropriately, and at this point we just have a large credit on our sales tax account because we made the duplicate payments. So I see no reason why we would not have this tomorrow. That's depending on how you count, if it was from the city council meeting or if it was from the date of the letter. Either way, you know, as I said previously, I'm a cautious person. I don't like to wait until the last minute. I assume that we will have that in our hands tomorrow, along with everything else, obviously, for the occupational license renewal. So would that be your request, Lori, that you're asking for a 24-hour extension? That would be fine. So I guess I would entertain discussion on that particular request at this time. Does anybody have anything? Mr. Berenson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also think that we should consider giving a 24-hour extension. Would you be able to, or do you have now, or would you be able to provide to us a copy of a receipt that you made these payments to the state?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely.
What was the amount that was paid?
Have to. Can I grab my phone and come back up here? Hold on just one minute.
I was going to, yeah, before you say, is that inappropriate? I'm going to ask legal
I was just
counsel
thinking
if that's appropriate.
Yeah, it's not pertinent to the question at hand. The question is whether or not the taxes have been paid and whether or not that no tax due letter would be issued.
Yeah, so you actually have confirmation on an email that that was that transition or that transaction was conducted. Do you have the person or department? I mean, other than the Department of Revenue, is there somebody that you're actually talking to via emails that we can?
No, I have the automated system confirmation. Okay. As I said, there are no specific people that you can call. You cannot call and talk to John Doe and follow up on your previous conversation from earlier in the day. That's not, it's no longer a possibility. And since you can't meet with anybody face to face, all you can do is call up and reiterate your situation every time that you call. But what I have is an automated confirmation.
Is that something that the city clerk can verify just by looking at it? Mr. Zur, I would ask you at this point.
I'm actually not sure what the city clerk is able to identify or confirm with regard to that, either online or by she may well be able to contact representatives of the Department of Revenue, but I don't know if that's not readily available online.
Okay, all right.
Would somebody be comfortable if I showed her this email confirmation and she could
I think we'd be
confirm
more
that she looked at it? And it says my company name, it says the date, it says the time, it says all of those things, and amount remitted.
I would kind of defer back to legal.
It'd be fine to show it to her, but it'd also be, you know, opportunity for her to email that to the city clerk as well, unless there's a way that the city clerk is able to see that online. So
okay.
May be appropriate to have that emailed to the city clerk.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Berenson.
Would that also, I guess I was a little naive to this, but would that show that she's caught up to date, or would it just show that a payment was made?
No, that's a good question. I'm not real sure.
I can answer that question.
Okay.
Okay, the email in itself doesn't show that. That's what we're waiting for, is the no tax due letter.
Right.
It's the tax clearance. That's what's supposed to go through the automated system. By making the duplicate payment, what it did is it took it off of somebody's desk for special handling and put it back into the automated system. I was willing to make the duplicate payment in order to put it back into the automated system. I've never done that before because I'm not accustomed to making credit card payments for my sales tax. We usually do it by electronic check. So by doing that, they took it off of somebody's desk and told me to go ahead and make the automatic payment. So what I can show here is the 2 months that were in question were January and February, because those are the first 2 months that the restaurant was open. And those are the 2 months that I filed sales tax for 2 separate locations when it should have been for 1 location. And so that's the problem with it. And this shows that we repaid the January and the February sales tax return. To be clear, January sales tax returns are due on February 20th. February sales tax returns are due on March the 20th. So when we found out that this was an issue, was on March the 20th. And so our last sales tax, for March, which was due just a couple of days ago for April, was properly filed, so it didn't need a duplicate payment. So by looking at this, you wouldn't be able to say, hey, somebody's caught up to date. That's what the no tax due letter is for, and that's what we've been waiting for.
So the March payment, you would be able to show us a receipt that showed payment of January, February, and March. Is that correct? Correct. But there's nothing you could show us. I guess what I'm asking, I just wanted to see that that everything was caught up and current. I'm assuming that everything before that was been paid up as well, too?
Correct.
Okay.
Pay them in chronological order. So.
Right.
I think that's what she's saying. She should get the confirmation that by tomorrow.
Okay.
Which I believe is technically within the days allowed in the letter. It really depends on if you start counting from the city council meeting or if you start counting from the date of the letter. It's a little ambiguous, so that's why I'm here right now. But they said that it should definitely.
I believe it's when you receive the letter, if that's right.
So that should technically be till Wednesday morning.
Thank you.
So.
Okay. Mr. Zerr, did you have some input there?
Yeah, I would simply point out that the requirements are simply for the no tax due letter. It's not a question of what dates or months are not paid. So the Department of Revenue issuing out that letter is really what is critical for purposes of the city clerk issuing out the new license. It's my understanding, and I'll defer to the city clerk a little bit on this as far as the timing is concerned. If action was taken this evening, there would not be any citations or other actions taken for further enforcement until, I believe, Wednesday, based upon just the process of signing and approvals between now and then. But I would again defer to the city clerk on that particular issue.
Jeannie?
Yes, thank you. The letter of the notification on council's action was sent to the business owners dated April the 10th, the day after the council meeting. That letter gave them 10 days, business days, from the date of that letter to meet compliance with their occupational license. So Mr. Zerr is correct. The order for the citations in municipal court will be made on Wednesday. That clears through the end of the business day on Tuesday.
Okay. And so your assurance that that has been made and we should get notification tomorrow shouldn't really require any council action at this time?
It shouldn't, but again, I'm here because it can be ambiguous, and we've all been here before. So just to be cautious, just to be certain, just to be clear that everybody has a clear understanding, then that's where we are, and that's where we anticipate being.
So the 10th day of that, 10th business day of that letter that she received is actually the 25th?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. All right. Does anybody else have anything at this time? Okay. Mr. Circo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what I'm saying, you're saying actually it ends tomorrow evening, the 10 days.
That's correct.
And effective on Wednesday morning, she would be in violation for her license with you Wednesday morning. She has to have this all completed by tomorrow, business day, 5 o'clock or whatever.
That's correct. I'm sorry if I misunderstood, Mayor, but Councilmember Circo is correct.
Okay,
the end of business tomorrow on the 24th, okay. And then citations would be issued on the 25th, Wednesday.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay.
And
Mr.
just for clarification, citations are only issued if she is open for business and operating on that day. I think that's correct in how the code reads, isn't it, Ms. Warner?
Correct, sir, because that's
So
continued
in
operation.
essence, if she's not open for business, then she would have to come in and make application for new, but she's only cited if she's operating in violation of. So if something were to happen and this did not come in, but she didn't open for business that day, she's not in violation of anything.
Okay. So I would, let me ask Ms. O'Malley, so knowing that, is there anything that now that you would request of this council for consideration?
No, my only, my biggest reason for being cautious, if I can just be candid, is I don't want, at any future time, such as for a liquor license renewal, I don't want there to be any confusion as to if we were or if we were not in compliance with the city council's wishes at any time. So or their orders. So that is my greater concern, because I'm fully confident that we'll have that tomorrow.
Okay. Mr. Circo?
Thank you, Mayor. My question would have been back to Mr. Fearborn. So if he says you're not open on Wednesday, but is that for all addresses on that, or just Freedom Stop, or everything that could be open? Any business?
It would be, yeah, she has applied for the entire complex.
Our complex. So nothing can be open on that Wednesday if she hadn't complied by tomorrow evening.
Sure.
If something was open, the restaurant, anything, then you'd be in violation.
That's my understanding as well. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you for the information.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good evening.
So we will now move on to item B. Could I please have these, excuse me?
The second business, sir?
Yes. I
Oh,
don't know
that's
if there's
right.
someone
I'm
from
sorry,
Polymer
you're right.
Systems.
I don't think there was anybody here from Polymer Systems, but I will open the floor if somebody is here from Polymer Systems. I didn't see the young man tonight. So we'll move on.
So
We had Ms. Fearborn,
So the same application there as well
Yes.
on the part of the council. Very good, sir.
Yeah.
Before we move on, I had a quick question. With the discussion this evening and last session as well, I'm just curious if there's any, and please, Mr. Fearborn, Mrs. Warner, if you could, do we typically gauge from the businesses in the area if there's any consensus with regard to dealing with Department of Revenue? On an individual basis, we've heard there's been some concerns with getting documentation in, calling individuals, and from an individual basis, that may be challenging, but as a city, I would think we have, and as a region, if there's similar issues between the other municipalities in the area with their businesses, have we heard from any surveys, or is there anything that we can glean from their interactions, having difficulty with the Department of Revenue, that we as a city can go back to and say our business owners are having problems getting through to you?
Consistently, the Department of Revenue, like many Missouri, state of Missouri departments, has been devastated by shortfalls in the state budget. They've had to cut back considerably on people. A number of local locations have had to have been shut down and shuttered. It is a difficult state bureaucracy, and I think you would hear that from not just businesses, but municipal interactions with them can be extremely difficult. And I think everybody speaks with one voice on that.
All right. I appreciate it. I just want to make sure I have a balanced understanding of the processes that the individuals are experiencing, individual business owners are experiencing, as well as if at the city level, local level, we're also having a similar challenge to balance when we're making the decisions on how to respond to certain requests. So thank you for entertaining the question.
Sure. Anyone else have anything before we move on? Okay. Anything else on that particular topic that you have, sir? No?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, well, we'll go ahead and move on to item B under old business. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3356 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3356 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an asset acquisition agreement with the Morningview Homeowners Association, Inc. for the acceptance of private infrastructure subject to certain conditions.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3356?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3356 for the Morningview infrastructure acquisition.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve Bill 3356. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Can I please have the second reading of Bill 3351 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3351 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, creating sections 500 through 600 to replace applicable sections of the current Raymore Administrative Policy Manual.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3351?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3351 for the administrative policy revision for sections 500 and 600.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve Bill 3351. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Okay, please have the second reading of Bill 3352 by title only.
The second reading of Bill 3352 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving and authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Mid-America Regional Council for the acquisition of aerial photography for the City of Raymore, Missouri.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3352?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3352 for the Mark Aerial Photography Project.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve Bill 3352. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Can I please have the second reading of Bill 3350 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3350 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city manager to enter into an agreement with Superior Bowen Asphalt Company, LLC, for the 2018 Street Preservation Project, City Project Number 18-296-201, in the amount of $357,257.75.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3350?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3350 for the award of contract for the 2018 Street Preservation Project.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve Bill 3350. Any further discussion? Mr. Holman.
Thank you, sir. I just have a question. So we're in the second year of this. Belton took the lead the first year, and then, as the packet says, peculiar to this year. And this was a cost-saving measure because basically it's leveraging the scale of the project among entities. Is there any way to know kind of what cost savings we leveraged out of this by doing it this way? We know it was a good deal. I just didn't know if we just know we saved money or if we actually had it pinned down to an estimate on the dollar amount.
Ms. Grass.
What I can tell you is they held their prices between last year and this year, so there was no inflationary increase. There was no increase due to the oil content or any of that. So the prices held between the 2 years.
I wish I could say the same thing about my health insurance. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3354 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3354 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Terry Snelling Construction, Inc. for the 2018 curb project, City Project Number 18-294-201, in the amount of $294,863.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3354?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3354 to award a contract for the 2018 curb replacement project.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve Bill 3354. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carries 8-0. Can I please have the second reading of Bill 3355 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3355 by title only, An ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the 2016 Community Assistance Program at Johnston Lake, located in Hawk Ridge Park, between the City of Raymore and the Missouri Department of Conservation.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3355?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3355 for the Johnston Lake Community Assistance Program Agreement.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve Bill 3355. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carries 8-0. Okay, that moves us on to new business. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3359 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3359 by title only. An ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, creating sections 700 through 800 to replace applicable sections of the current Raymore Administrative Policy Manual.
Thank you. Is there a staff report, sir?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Chief to make a staff report on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Actually, Ms. Auger is going to come up and report out.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. We are here to present the final two chapters of the Administrative Policy Manual 700 and 800 for first read. And I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. As you know, we went through this in work session. Does anybody have any questions of those items? I guess not. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thanks.
So I would entertain a motion to dispose of the first reading of Bill 3359.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3359, the policy revisions for sections 700 and 800 of the Administrative Manual.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3359. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 8-0. Can I please have the first reading of Bill 3357 by title only? I'm on the right spot, aren't I, Jeannie? I hope.
Item B, 3358.
Item B, 3357.
3357.
57. The first reading of Bill 3357 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Vance Brothers, Inc. for the 2018 microsurface project, city project number 18-296-202, in the amount of $485,171.80.
Thank you. Is there a staff report, Mr. Fearborn?
Yes, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Grass to make a staff report on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as we discussed at the last council meeting, you've awarded the portion of our street preservation program that involves mill and overlay and placing new asphalt surface. This is a second component of that work that involves crack sealing and then placing of a thin asphalt surface on certain streets. We do recommend award of the contract to Vance Brothers. That concludes staff report.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Okay, well, with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the first reading of Bill 3357.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3357 to award the contract for the 2018 microsurface project.
I'll second that motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3357. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3358 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3358 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Tasco LLC for the 155th Street Culvert Project, city project number 18-260-202, in the amount of $248,759.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Grass to make a staff report on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This project is the second of 3 phases of improvements programmed for 155th Street from Kentucky Road to Kurzweil Road that is being done in cooperation with the City of Kansas City. This project involves reconstructing or replacing the bridge that was closed several years ago due to structural deficiencies by the City of Kansas City. We do recommend award of the contract to Tasco LLC.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff? Mr. Holman.
Mr. Krass, this is an excellent project. I don't think anybody thought that was a secret on my part, or even Mr. Barber, speaking for him. We're really excited to see this go forward. Now, this was a complex project that staff really went out and dug their fingers into, and I think it's very forward-thinking. And it requires, just on the engineering side, 3 phases. It also requires the city of Kansas City to de-annex the north portion of the road and us to annex that at some point. Will that be after the engineering improvements are improved, or will that be prior to that, or do we know yet?
It will be as soon as possible. It's our understanding that Kansas City's been having some administrative issues figuring out how to get rid of it, but we know they want to get rid of it, so they'll figure that out. If I may, Mr. Krass, tell them the really good news about this particular bid.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. The project, we had put some timelines out last year when we were looking at a traditional bridge. Once we got some engineering information internal, we discussed it, and although it did delay the project a little bit, we did move forward with a more traditional box culvert type, which is just a square concrete pipe. That resulted in a cost savings of approximately $200,000 over the traditional bridge.
It will be my recommendation, if at all possible, to push all of those funds back into even more improvements on this stretch of road.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
That concludes staff reports.
Okay. And thank you, Mike. I know that re-engineering thing, we caught a little heat over that because it did delay the project, but it totally makes sense, and the amount saved in order to reinvest into that stretch of roadway is going to make folks really happy. So anybody have anything else for staff? Mr. Barber.
I just wanted to thank Mr. Krass for all of his hard work, and actually this turned out better than we initially thought, and I know it's through your hard work and putting your guys' engineering abilities together, and that this is going to turn out better than we expected. And I know this is one of those projects, because I asked you before the council meeting, one of those projects you'd like to get off the table, because you're asked probably every week, how's that bridge going? And I asked you today on purpose, and you said, hey, it's on the agenda. Well, I knew that, but I wanted to ask you one last time, so thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Hearing none, is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3358?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3358 to award the contract for the 155th Street Culvert Project.
And I will strongly second that motion, sir.
Thank you. A motion been made and strongly seconded for the approval of Bill 3358. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously. Should we get out the fireworks? Do something with that. That was, I know we've all been anxious about this project. Okay, then that moves us on to item D, governing body members on Planning and Zoning Commission. It is my intent, without objection, to continue to serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission. However, I know that there's also the opportunity for someone else to serve if they like. That would put us at a difficult level with 10 rather than 9 members, which then, as the 9 prohibits a tie. But I would be I'd be remiss in not asking those that might want to serve on that Planning and Zoning. Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I've had this conversation 9 times, and thank you for the opportunity. Historically, the councils that I've served with have opted to not serve on this for the very reasons that you have stated, and also that when topics come before the council, they've been vetted through the Planning and Zoning, and the sentiment is that a possible conflict of interest by voting previously to that. Just a historical point of view there, but again, I appreciate the opportunity, but I'm going to hold my consistent opinion that I will not, I would wish that we as council stay the course that we have been in the past. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Mr. Berenson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would agree with Councilman Kellogg. I think you should remain on the Planning and Zoning Commission. And I think I brought this up last year, and I'll mention it again. Probably get the same answer. But I think we should consider appointing maybe an alternate or a second alternate in case you have an absence. That's the only thing I would add to that. But fully support yourself being on it there again, Mayor.
All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else? And Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've served on the P&Z when the mayor was on, and I think it was a good mix between us as the council not micromanaging what planning and zoning does, but it more served as a liaison between the two, and I think that's an appropriate way to continue. I think it's been going real well.
Okay. Well, thank you. If there's then there's no motion to move differently, then I'll just go ahead and continue to serve at this time. All right. Thank you, everyone. So we'll move on to item E, selection of Mayor Pro Tem. So I would entertain a motion to appoint a Mayor Pro Tem at this time. Mr. Holman.
I'll nominate Councilmember Barber for that position.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations? There are no other nominations. There is a motion on the floor to accept Councilman Kevin Barber as Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor? Oh, but
Did Councilman Barber?
I accept.
Thank you.
He didn't hit me,
That's
so
a
I
good
took
one.
that as a sign that yes. So.
All right, I'll ask again. Are all those in favor? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Welcome, Mr. Barber. Wow, we're through the agenda. Okay, that was quick. So we're on to public comments. If anyone from the public would like to address the council at this time, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Anyone? Okay, we'll move on to Mayor Council Communication. And I will start with Mr. Circo tonight.
As a new guy here, I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to say.
Did you like anything on the agenda tonight?
Oh, I liked it, yeah,
Yeah,
stuff on
okay.
the agenda. Yes, for many years out here as a business owner, and that bridge that you talk about, 155th, Park Kansas City and everything, has always been a dilemma, a big problem. And I'm glad to see that Raymore took the lead, that they got together, and we knew Kansas City never really wanted that property. It was just an eyesore for them, but glad to see that you guys went that far to get connection with them and get that thing done, and so we can get that road back open. There's a lot of people who really want that road open.
Amen.
And we get our people here very happy to get open. And now, again, I guess, after all I said, we can probably turn around and take the ownership of that street and that bridge in that area, I guess, after the project is complete, I would assume from what I was hearing.
That's the intent.
That's the intent.
Yep.
Hopefully, yeah, Kansas City, just go with us, and they're sometimes difficult. But anyway, no, I like everything I've heard. Mr. Barber make a good Mayor Pro Tem, and I'm very happy with the way this is going. I'm just here to work with the people on the council and the mayor and the city and move forward, and any opportunities I can to help them. That's what I'm here for, and we'll move forward. A great city, a great community, great people, and we have a great situation here for the future, and I'm really happy to be on board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Mr. Berg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to take a point of personal privilege and thank actually a friend of mine, but he's also a constituent, lives in Ward 2, Joseph O'Neill, Joe O'Neill. This weekend, he serves as the president of the RAPEC MNEA, Missouri NEA, and we went down to the 45th anniversary of the NEA, and he drove Saturday morning, got up early and drove to Tansera. We did not see outside of a convention room. It didn't have windows, even like this room has. But we worked on some business for Missouri's students and tried to make sure that we're funding the education, and it's one of the things that really drives the growth in our city. I feel education is paramount to everything that we do. But I also wanted to thank him because then on Sunday morning, or Sunday, he drove back to Raymore with us, and he was the MC and host of the Raymore Peculiar Sunrise Optimist Club. They had their Excellence in Education banquet, and we honored the top, I think it's 35 students at RAPEC, the 10 sophomores, 15 juniors and 25 seniors, the people that are leading in the standings in their grades. And so he did a huge amount of work, and it was on his birthday, so I wanted to wish happy birthday to him. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing this evening.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a couple things. Tonight was the first night that I've been able to ride my bicycle back up to City Hall. And we've
you got a helmet.
We've got it. And I'm going to advocate, I'm not going to dictate, but I will advocate that everybody use their helmet. It might just save you about $8,000 in a medical bill to put 7 staples on the top of your head. Other than that, a couple things, and it's surprising, you know, not surprising, but very heartwarming to hear the project down on 155th, the culvert, and how that plays in tonight. Just today, I had a conversation with a co-worker that he cornered me about 6 o'clock in the morning, and he was asking me about Creekmore. He says, you know where Creekmore is? You know about Creekmore? I said, yeah, I know quite a bit about it. And he says, well, I've been looking at a house there. I said, well, that's in Raymore. He said, well, I really didn't know that. And I said, well, it is. And he asked a lot of questions about 155th in particular. And he asked what was going on down there, and I explained to him. And he was extremely happy about that. And he asked about the route. So he knows what is out to the east, and he's wanting to, you know, this is one of those decisions that's going to help him make a decision to buy a home. And in that conversation, another thing that Jim Feuerborn will love this one, that he mentioned to me, he says, well, he says, as we were looking through the information, he says, we saw that the property taxes were very reasonable. I said, well, they're probably the lowest in the region. He said, really? I said, yeah. And I said, another thing is the water bills, the least in the region. So anyway, I'm trying to sell him a house that I don't even know where it's at in Creekmore, but I definitely would love to have him as, he's a great guy. The other thing on it is, not on that I have to speak of tonight, a conversation that I had about 2 weeks ago, two and a half weeks ago, somebody cornered me at the front end of the plant and asked me if I knew about Johnston Lake. And I said, yeah, I know quite a bit about Johnston Lake also. So the gal, her name was Janet, I won't say her last name, Janet S., sweet gal, just I've worked with her for 14 years. She was telling me that her husband has been fishing there and catching a lot of trout. I said, well, that's no surprise to me. I said, we've been featured in the Department of Missouri Natural Resources. She goes, yeah, that's how he found out about it. So he's driving from Peculiar quite often to fish Johnston Lake. And I thanked her immensely for telling me that story and sharing that with me. That way I can come back and give those results back to staff to let them know how effective that was, you know. And that was one of those things that the Missouri Department of Natural Resources shined on us. You know, we didn't solicit that. They saw what we were doing, and they featured us in that article, and I'll never forget that. So it's still paying dividends, and so a huge kudos out to staff for everything they do. You know, it's still, those results are still coming in, and don't ever think that, you know, these little things you do are so little. They are big, and I thank you and every employee in here for every contribution they've done for it. That's what's making our city great, and that's what's making it very, very attractive to people who are currently living in Johnson County, Overland Park. Thanks a lot, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Berenson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to start off with congratulating Kevin Barber on being our new mayor pro tem. I wish, Jay, when you nominated him, you would have specified that he has to wear that tie every night. We don't get to see that every time, but looking sharp, and hope you'll wear that from now on.
It is an Air Force tie, isn't it? I think it is.
Yeah, it's more Air Force than Navy, that's for sure. So, also like to thank city staff, and especially the Parks Department and the Parks Board. Tonight we voted on the Johnston Lake Assistance Program. If you look at that, we were spending roughly $237,000, of which roughly 75%, $178,000, is being contributed by the Missouri Department of Conservation. So great job to the city and the Parks Department and park staff for doing that. We're getting a lot for our money there, and a big contribution from the state of Missouri for an ADA bathroom, a floating dock, a 50-foot ADA concrete fishing platform and trails to connect everything. So excited about that, looking forward to it, and great job on securing the extra funds for us to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Abdullah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to take a minute and thank the council for supporting the Morning View infrastructure acquisition bill that passed final reading tonight. I want to thank the Morning View Homeowners Board for working together with the city. Thanks city staff for, it was quite a bit of time and effort put into this project, this agreement. I think it sets a great standard for infrastructure acquisition with our new policy from here on out. I think it was a win-win. I feel like it was a win-win for both the city and the Morning View community. So thanks everyone for your support on that, and thanks city staff and Morning View for working together with us on that. I want to thank Mr. Barber for his willingness to step forward and serve as Mayor Pro Tem. And then finally, we attended the food truck Friday on Tuesday, Nathan. It was fabulous. Even for a rescheduled event, I know that probably had you guys running to get that all reorganized for the second time, but lots of people out there, lots of happy faces, lots of good food, so keep up the great work.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to, like I always do, I'd like to really thank our citizen volunteers that we appointed tonight. I always say the same thing, and I'll just repeat myself. We couldn't run the city without folks like that take their time and volunteer to help with the different boards and commissions that we have. I also want to say thank you for the council for the vote of confidence. I'm humbled and honored, and all I can say is be patient with me. And then I want to close with this. I wrote this date down, April 23rd, 2018. And Mr. Serco, I'm sorry, but I wrote this date down as Tom Serco didn't know what to say. And I got to tell you, that, you know, we go through lives. That has to be the first. So I had to write that date down. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Mr. Holman.
Thank you, sir. Two things, one serious, one not so serious. First of all, you probably all heard of the passing of Barbara Bush recently, and it was announced this afternoon that her husband, President George H.W. Bush, was admitted to the hospital. They did say he's responding to treatment, but he's been in failing health for some time, so just someone to keep in your prayers. Bush family's going through some transition right now, certainly. The other thing, not quite so serious, several of you may be familiar with my annual tradition whenever Disney comes out with a new Star Wars movie, typically around Christmas, and I in jovially give the mayor's version of the State of the City speech using Star Wars terms. I don't know how many of you knew it, but the Han Solo movie comes out May 25th. However, to continue to build excitement, I have decided to defer until December this year. Thank you, sir. That's all I have.
So if any of you'd like to start impeachment proceedings at this time, no, thank you, Jay. Appreciate that. I also wanted to say what a loss to our country with the our former First Lady and really matriarch. She was a wonderful woman, full of integrity and life, and really brought a lot of wonderful, as I use the word integrity again, to the White House during their time there. And that family continues to need your prayers and support, and for our former President Bush as well. With that, I would like to remind folks, well, actually, it's just kind of elected officials and officials of the city, but we are hosting here in Raymore a Nepalese delegation of elected officials from the city level are going to be here on May the 1st. We're handling it at Centerview. Any of you up here that would like to attend, please do so. We're going to interact with them from about, I think it's what, 9 o'clock on, and then we're going to feed them lunch and then do a tour of a couple of city halls. But they are, over in Nepal, they just recently set up a similar arrangement within their municipalities for a mayor and council forms of government. They have different titles for them, but it's basically the same thing. One of the council ladies from down at, or Alderman Judy Bowman from down at Harrisonville has a connection to a pastor who does mission work there and has made friends, and so they're going to come here. And I thought that would be interesting to host that here at Centerview and bring a little spotlight to our community and hopefully help them with their setup as well and see how well a good council is run. So hopefully you can join us then. We have, let's see, I had a reunion this last weekend with the guys I served with in Iraq in '09. That was fun. I was down at San Antonio. Good get together there. There's 10 of us that usually get together, and I know we have our wives, so we can't get too crazy, but it's always fun to get together with them. Got back this afternoon around 2:30. And then finally, I want to welcome Mr. Barber as Mayor Pro Tem. He's got some big shoes to fill. Mr. Moorhead did a great job as our Mayor Pro Tem, and I know you're here very regular, so I think there's about 4 Mondays over summer I won't be here, so I'm just kidding you. I'll be around. Bugging you? I'll probably be some ribbon cutting, so I would appreciate you to help me with. But I think that's it. That's all I have for tonight. If there's nothing else, no need to go to executive session.
Sir, staff would respectfully ask for an executive session to discuss personnel matters as authorized by 610-0213.
Okay. Is there a motion to do that?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we move into executive session for personnel matters.
I'll second that motion, sir.
Motion's been made and seconded to go into personnel matters. Could I please have a roll call?
Yes.
Councilmember Barber?
Yes.
Councilmember Berenson?
Yes.
Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Councilmember Serko?
Yes.
Councilmember Holman?
Yes.
Councilmember Kellogg?
Yes.
Councilmember Townsend?
Yes.
Thank you. We will go into executive session now. When we adjourn from that, we'll come back to regular session to adjourn from this. Thank you.